My roommate sent my boyfriend a flirty selfie in the middle of the night. She didn't forget to badmouth me, saying, "Julia's body looks like a bean sprout, it must be tough for you. Unlike me, I've got everything you might want. Wanna give it a try?" That night, my boyfriend Eric's loud "shameless" echoed in the dorm room for ages. In the middle of the night, a man's voice suddenly blasted in the room. Loud enough that it woke me up from sleep. I sat up abruptly, pulled back my bed curtain, and saw my new roommate Emily fumbling with her phone across the room. "Shameless. Shameless." The robust male voice kept ringing out of her phone. The other two roommates were woken up too and gave Emily a frown. Maybe it was our burning gaze, but Emily chucked her phone onto the floor in frustration. After a good few minutes of chaos, the phone finally went quiet, but the voice seemed to linger. Emily climbed down from her bed, picked up her iPhone 14 Pro Max, cuddling it like it was injured. Sandy, one of our roommates, asked with annoyance, "What were you doing in the middle of the night?" Standing there barefoot, Emily looked up at the three of us with tearful eyes, bowed, and apologized pitifully. "Sorry, I think my phone got a virus. I'm really sorry." Sandy's anger got caught in her throat. Her expression shifted before she sighed and waved it off. "Just go back to sleep." As I was about to let down the curtain and go back to sleep, I noticed Emily staring at me, not moving an inch. Her black hair, white pajamas, and unblinking eyes sent a shiver down my spine. I cleared my throat awkwardly. "Is there something you need?" Emily didn't say a word, just forced a smile and climbed back to her bed quickly. As I lowered the curtain, uneasy questions popped into my mind. That voice had felt oddly familiar, and Emily's strange behavior was raising major red flags. I picked up my phone to vent to Sandy, but noticed messages flooding in from my boyfriend Eric. I clicked open the chat and found a screenshot. The sender was Emily, the same roommate who'd just embarrassed herself. She sent Eric a selfie with a very low-cut dress and skirt. Amidst the curves, you could see shadows inside if you looked closely. If not for the messages below, I might have even complimented her figure. "Eric, Julia's body figure is like a bean sprout. It must be hard for you. Unlike me, I've got everything you want. Why not give it a try? If you're showing off, just show off, but why the need to put me down?" I looked down at myself. Well, not bad either. But that's not the point. Emily had just moved into our dorm today and met Eric at dinner. How did she get his contact so fast? I scrolled further down Eric's messages. "Is there something wrong with this Emily? She insisted on adding me because she said you were sick to your stomach, and then turns around and sends me this stuff. My girlfriend's way better than her." The last few messages read, "Julia, why aren't you answering me? Are you really sick? I'm coming over." Eric might be smart in academics, but when it comes to feelings, he's as blunt as a wooden log. It's 1 a.m., and the dorm's long been locked. Worried he'd do something stupid, I sprinted down the corridor to the communal room to call him. The phone barely rang before Eric picked up. I quickly whispered, "I'm not sick, I'm fine, just stay where you are." No response from the other end, just the sound of wind. I pressed my forehead, prompted, "You haven't left, have you?" Eric replied quickly, sounding a bit pouty, "I'm sitting on the windowsill, about to climb the outdoor AC unit to save you." I sighed in relief. Thank goodness I called in time. Eric's dorm is on the 5th floor. If he fell, my birthday gift for him would have to be a burial box. I gritted my teeth, get back inside, now, and go to sleep. Eric sulked, but I yawned and comforted him until I heard the sound of a window closing. I finally relaxed. I rubbed my eyes and cut off Eric's chatter. "Let's talk about it in the morning." Back in the dorm, I peeked at Emily's bed, and she was sleeping soundly. Her acting was impressive. Without Eric's screenshot, I'd have thought she was an adorable roommate. The next morning, as usual, I got up early, packed my stuff, and went out. I spotted Eric by the dorm entrance, looking up at something. Dressed in black, looking dapper, sunlight painting him in golden streaks. He looked every bit the charming young man. Too bad he has a mouth. I called out, Eric. He turned towards me, broke into a big goofy grin, and stretched out his arms. Finally, some romantic moves from Eric. I ran towards him, but stopped short as his hands landed on my shoulders. Confused, I looked up at him. With a mysterious smile, Eric unzipped his jacket to show a collection of breakfast items inside. Proud of myself. Which one do you want? His voice came triumphantly. I ate my words about him being romantic. I grabbed a sandwich, linked his arm, joking, good thing we're not caught selling food, or I'd have to bail you out. He paused, sipping milk, asking, what happened last night? I shook my head, smiling, no idea. I've got an early class today. I was asleep early last night. Eric downed the milk, tossed the empty box right into the bin, and pulled out his phone to show off. I tweaked that virus software you sent me and sent it to her. No one talks trash about my girlfriend, especially my dear Jay. I shoved a half dumpling into his mouth, turning red. So you're the one who sent the shameless message? Eric was choking and his face went red as a tomato. I had to pat his back forever before he was okay. Yeah, that's right. Sent the message and then blocked him right away. Your boyfriend, me, a modern-day gentleman. I gave him a thumbs up and headed into the classroom. Eric is 2 years ahead of me and is in grad school now, so we don't have classes together. He reluctantly left, constantly looking back. In the classroom, I was conflicted. I usually save seats for my roommates Sandy and Amy, but now there's Emily. Forget it, I'm petty. No way I'm saving a seat for someone who's trying to steal my friend. Minutes ticked by, and my friends, like always, barely made it to class before the bell. It's a big elective class, and besides the seat next to me, only the front row was empty. I waved Sandy and Amy over, but only Sandy came. Amy shot me a look from a distance and pulled Emily by the hand to sit in the front row. Watching them holding hands, I was confused and asked Sandy, what's going on that I don't know about? Sandy sighed and whispered in my ear, this morning, Emily said she was going to ask Eric for his contact to split the dinner bill. But Eric wasn't having it and teased her instead. You know Amy doesn't have much money and got fooled into thinking you and Eric looked down on her, so there you go. I raised my eyebrows, understanding the situation, and handed Sandy a screenshot Eric sent me last night. Without even looking, she firmly stood by me. As far as I know, Eric wouldn't even add her contact, let alone mock her. I was beyond impressed. Eric's straightforward nature was well known. But I was just curious about what he said last night. Sandy saw the sexy selfie and couldn't help blurting out. The whole class was turning to look, even the teacher frowned at us. Sandy quickly said, I need the bathroom, my stomach hurts. And ducked out. With all eyes on me, I grabbed my phone, bailed out saying, I'm bringing her some paper. Sandy was hiding in the restroom, sighing in muffled tones, Emily's into Eric 'cause he's good looking and got money, huh? I nodded, not disagreeing. Eric was good looking, brilliant, and came from a good family. Even his dressing sense was great, making him quite popular during college. Even after we started dating, he still got all the attention. Just the other day at the movies, the girl selling popcorn was basically glued to him. If Eric hadn't suddenly said, I'll just get a medium size, no drink, no membership card. Any more pushing and I'll complain, I bet she'd have asked for his number. I couldn't help but grind my teeth at the thought, maybe he needs a helmet. He'd probably love it so much that he'd wear it all the time. Sandy patted my shoulder, sensing my worry, and gently reassured me, don't worry, your Eric won't fancy Emily. It sounded odd, but no time to ponder. Sandy dragged me back to class. The teacher droned on with a steady tone, while an unexplainable worry hovered over me. I wrote and deleted a message multiple times before sending it to Eric. Are you okay? Eric didn't reply. Looking at the unchanged screen, I remembered a few months back. It was our 1-year anniversary. Eric texted, saying he wanted to take me somewhere. Sandy fussed over my looks from head to toe until I was all polished and ready. Even bookworm Amy urged me about being safe. Excited yet nervous, I had dinner with Eric and followed him to a couple's hotel. Holding a room card, Eric's eyes were filled with excitement he couldn't hide. I was getting jittery. He opened the door, his hot hand covering my eyes, and whispered enticingly in my ear, "Julia, guess what I found here?" Every steamy scene I'd ever watched buzzed through my head. I stammered, "What?" Eric's hand gently left my face, and I blinked in the bright light. It was a classroom-themed suite. Quite the quirk, huh? I was about to make a snarky comment when Eric took me to the podium and started writing on the chalkboard. Interview prep. Wow, just wow. We spent the night practicing structured Q&A at the hotel. The loud bell snapped me out of the absurd memory. I looked up to see Eric leaning against the door frame, spinning his phone in his hand. Feeling guilty, I tried sneaking out the back when Eric called me out. "Julia, where do you think you're going?" I awkwardly turned, plastered a smile, and was about to explain when Emily beat me to it. She came to the door, nervously clutching her shirt and insisting, "Eric, Julia looks down on you. Just because she's got some money, she bullies her roommates and disrespects teachers. She's not good enough for you." I'm just blunt, okay? The class was still there, eager to catch the drama unfold. Emily's words painted me in a horrible light, turning white into black, determined to tarnish my reputation. I frowned and walked over, but Eric swiftly pulled me behind him, giving me a reassuring look before launching his tirade. Even if someone's straightforward, that doesn't mean they should spew nonsense. Yesterday, you had a great meal and would have drunk the dishwater. The moment the bill comes, your tummy aches. It sounded fine when we said we'd cover it, but if you were to pay, you'd act like you were dying on the spot. What about having money? As for disrespecting the teacher, that's absurd. Julia never shows up late or leaves early and excels academically. Haven't you repeated junior year 'cause of too many failed classes? Emily went silent, tears pooled in her red-rimmed eyes, occasionally wiping them away as she looked around at curious classmates. She almost seemed pitiful in that moment. It's a shame for college students these days. They're naive but not stupid, and for a moment, no one stood up for her. So Emily turned her gaze to the teacher nearby. The young male teacher didn't expect to be caught up in this drama. His grin froze in place, confusion clouding his face. After a brief pause, he patted Eric on the shoulder, reminding him they are all classmates. Then he fled the scene at lightning speed through the door's crack. The students caught on and evacuated from the back, leaving the theater void of an audience. Realizing there was no show to put on, Emily clutched her backpack and darted out of the classroom. On her way out, she made sure to bump into me hard. I stood at the edge of the steps and, caught off guard, stumbled toward the stairs. Eric quickly reached out and grabbed my waist, pulling me toward him. But he used too much force. My forehead bumped into his chin with a thud. Even so, the fall wasn't avoided. All I could do was place my hand behind Eric's head to cushion it. The pain I expected never came. Eric managed the fall's impact perfectly. Aside from some discomfort in my abdomen, I felt fine. Instinctively, I pushed in return but only saw Eric's face, flushed with embarrassment, inches from mine. He took a sharp breath, tightened his grip on my waist, and hoarsely asked if I was okay. "Yeah, I'm okay, really okay." I nodded furiously, wishing I could become a human jackhammer right there. Once Eric heard the answer he wanted, he let go and helped me up. Despite that, he remained seated on the floor, refusing to stand. With determination, he declared, "I was planning to wait until you graduate, but now I've decided otherwise." Now, he decided to move the timeline up to my thesis defense day. I helped Eric up from the cold floor, feeling warm inside. I leaned in and gave him a quick kiss on the cheek, agreeing with a smile, "Whatever you say." That made Eric, previously so confident, a bit flustered. He took a step back and sat on a chair, exclaiming he needed some time to recover. There were no classes in the afternoon, but I didn't want to return to the dorm and see Emily's fake little smirk. So I tagged along to Eric's group meeting and later to the library for some study time. When I got back to the dorm at night, all three were there. Sandy turned and gave me a knowing wink, but I didn't get it. Suddenly, Emily jumped over from the corner, latched onto me, and kept rubbing against my arm. It was enthusiastic, sure, but was she hitting on the wrong person? She slipped a small gift bag into my hand, cooing with a sweet voice, "Julia, I'm sorry, okay? I used to like Eric, so I overstepped when we met again. This is an apology gift. Can you forgive me? I'm easily softened, but the things Emily did were too gross. I didn't feel like saying it was okay." Firmly, I pulled my arm back and placed the gift on her desk, finally speaking, "Forget the gift. Just explain what happened last night to Amy." No sooner had the words left my mouth than Emily's eyes turned red. Tears rolled down in huge drops. Sandy and I exchanged looks, our smiles more awkward than comforting. Amy jumped up, her chair screeching on the floor as she did, which was jarring. "Julia, she's already apologized. What more do you want?" She snapped, "I'll transfer the dinner money to you in a bit," Amy said, slamming the dorm door and storming off. I was stunned. Normally, Amy is so mild-mannered, she rarely got this mad. I wondered what kind of spell Emily had put on her, since she wouldn't even listen to an explanation. Meanwhile, Emily, who had been sobbing, composed herself and sniffled through her tears. "Julia, maybe it's my words that made Amy misunderstand. I'll definitely explain it to her. But please accept this gift, I have something else to ask of you all." Looking at the pink gift bag in my hand, I leaned against the table, waiting to hear whatever Emily was going to say this time. I signed with a management company, and I might have to do live streams at night. I've already installed bed curtains, and those headphones are noise-canceling. I promise not to disturb you. I glanced over at Sandy, who gave me a nod with a blue bag in her hand, indicating she also got one. Emily had said so much that there wasn't much point in pursuing it further. I accepted the gift and warned, "Clear things up soon, or I'll bring the photos myself." Emily lowered her head, playing the meek role, but it was unbearable to watch. Out of sight, out of mind, I got my stuff and headed to wash up. When I returned, Emily had already gone to bed. I sat down and opened the gift bag. The headphones were from a well-known brand, with a price in the small thousand range. Not the kind of thing Emily usually gave. Something felt off. I took a Q-tip and swirled it around the earpiece, uncovering a patch of something sticky and yellow. It might have been my imagination, but I thought I saw something moving slowly inside. Emily's gift wasn't genuine. I showed Sandy the Q-tip, and she almost gagged, quickly wiping her own with a tissue. Hers was filthy too. Though Amy and I had some misunderstanding, after nearly 3 years of living together, I DM'd to let her know. Unexpectedly, she replied, "People like us would never be happy with anything you give." Then blocked and unfriended me. Sandy tried to warn her as well, only to also earn herself a friendship breakup. I sat up in bed, flipping back and forth, unable to sleep, struggling to understand how Emily had messed up our dorm like this. Right when I was drifting off, I heard an eerie noise. It was a hushed, raspy voice. "Come on guys, support me. If someone sends a Ferris wheel, I'll grant you a wish." Yep, I was, indeed, in the dorm room. This must be more thrilling, don't you all agree? It gave me goosebumps, feeling something was wrong but not knowing what. I checked the time, it was already 2 a.m. I scrambled for my earplugs, forcing myself to sleep. My last thought before fading was, do normal people live stream at this hour? The next day, I got up early like usual. On my way to wash up, a breeze blew Emily's bed curtain open. I tucked it back in and noticed her arm clinging to the blanket and her leg pinned under it. There was no sign of pajamas. Things seemed way more bizarre than I thought. Eric was still waiting for me downstairs. I briefly complained to him about the headphones Emily gave me last night. He raised his eyebrows, about to head upstairs to confront Emily, but I held him back. Honey, if you've got nothing to do, could you help me pick up some stuff? Eric can't resist when I call him honey. The second he hears it, he gets so flustered he can't tell north from south. I'll walk you to your classroom now and pick up the stuff for you before lunch. We walked into the classroom together and sat down to study. Some classmates kept turning around to look at us. I guess the rumors from yesterday spread like wildfire. Our classmate Bruce loves to gossip. He's not tall, but he's got some weight. He's one of those who put all their effort into growing sideways when they can't grow up. He sat a row ahead of me, struggling to turn his chubby body to look at us. I pretended not to notice and kept my head down. But Bruce was stubborn, repeatedly nudging my desk. I was annoyed and slid my desk back a bit. Yet, Bruce wouldn't let it go. Shoulder against my desk, he kept calling. Julia, Julia, are you? Eric patted his shoulder. Dude, you're really bored, huh? Bruce was taken aback, looked at Eric, then at me, and awkwardly said, I was just curious. Eric put on a serious face. Is rat poison sweet or salty? Bruce shook his head dumbly. I don't know. Eric continued, when people die, do they go to heaven or hell? Bruce stopped answering and countered, what do you mean? Eric cleared his throat and went on. Aren't you curious? Why don't you taste that rat poison and solve the mystery for us? It'd be a contribution to humanity. The classroom fell silent before bursting into laughter. Feeling embarrassed, Bruce switched seats, holding his stomach. Emily came to class much earlier today than she did yesterday. She entered, immediately taking off her coat despite the cold, revealing a form-fitting skirt underneath. I had to admit it looked really good. I glanced at her several times until Eric nudged my sleeve. Julia, is this pencil straight or bent? I answered, puzzled, straight. Eric then asked, and you? I flicked his forehead. Honey, don't you know what I like? Eric's face turned red and his neck matched as the color spread. He stood up. Julia, stay here. I'll be back to get you later. I waved him off, though inside, I felt a strange sense of unease. Maybe I'll feel better once Eric brings back the stuff. Looking up, Eric was already out of sight, and Emily was gone too, leaving just her white coat behind. My phone buzzed suddenly. It was a video call from Eric. I put on the headphones to take it. The shaky video showed Emily bending over, apologizing, with quite a revealing neckline. Eric, I've liked you since freshman year. I know Julia's jealous, but I can secretly keep in touch. Okay? Eric seemed upset, the whole screen was shaking. What the hell for? I have a girlfriend, why would I contact you? He continued, why don't you grab a spoon and taste the soup from trash cans for us, or apply at a pool as a water tester to check for uric acid? Why do you keep looking at me like that? Emily started to cry, tears rolled down her cheeks, following the curves, provoking imaginations. She sobbed, Eric, remember 2 years ago when you lent me your jacket because I got my pants dirty? I knew then I wanted to be with you. Eric's voice came through faintly. I remember, that jacket was over $1,000. You never returned it. Just give Julia the cash for it. One can't repay kindness with ingratitude. Emily was stunned, not even noticing when Eric left. When she returned to the classroom, she didn't even realize the noticeable snot bubble under her nose. The 8,000 blow must have been too much for Emily. She didn't stir up any trouble all morning or even join the afternoon and evening classes. It seemed like she finally calmed down. Lucky for me too, I had time to set up the stuff Eric bought on my bunk. Around 10 p.m., right before dorm lockup, Emily and Amy came back. They carried gift bags of all sizes, grinning widely. Timid Amy, with a newfound sense of pride, said, Sandy, Julia, you won't believe it. Emily is the heiress to J Media. She took me to the company, someone wanted to sign me. They said I only need to stream 2 hours a day and could earn 5 figures a month. They even advanced me a month's salary. Now I won't need to work multiple shifts. You should take back the stuff you bought me, I don't need it anymore. Sandy and I shared a look of disbelief. Who ever heard of such a gaudy rich kid like Emily? Sandy kindly warned Amy, did you even read the contract before signing? Emily rolled her eyes, climbing into bed. Why would our company scam her? What does she have worth scamming? You guys are just jealous. Hearing this, Amy tossed the coffee she planned to offer us into the trash and started rummaging through her bags, making a ruckus. I furrowed my brow at the naive Amy, stopping Sandy from scolding her more, just shaking my head gently instead. Emily sat at the edge of her bed, swinging her legs, looking us up and down. You're both small, but not bad to look at. Want to work with us? I resisted the urge to smack her, channeling Eric's sarcasm, and fired back. You're big enough, all the water in your brain must have flowed there. So, Ms. Generous, when will you pay back the money you owe? Emily was silent for a long while before quietly muttering, I'm sorry. My parents said they wanted to toughen me up, so they didn't give me any allowance. I'll pay you guys back when I get my share next month. This sudden apology made me feel like I was punching a pillow. I wasn't just mad anymore, now I was frustrated. Green tea seemed to have double-crossed me. Fine, we'll calculate interest based on a regular savings account then. After saying that, I went back to bed, turned on a tiny nightlight I set up earlier, and went to sleep. In the middle of the night, I once again heard Emily's coy voice. Hey big bro, am I not pretty? Send a couple of Ferris wheels, and I'll dance for everyone. I quietly peeked through a corner of my curtain and saw the warm orange glow from Emily's bed. A silhouette was kneeling on the bed, gently touching their face, neck, and moving downward. Seeing this, I quickly dropped the curtain. My mind was blown. Is this even a legit live stream? I searched for J Media Company online. There was no such company. Instead, I found many weird pages. I fumbled to close them, but still made noise. I laid down immediately, pretending to be asleep. Within less than half a minute, my curtain was suddenly lifted. I could feel Emily's creepy gaze. Julia, stop pretending. I know it's you. I didn't respond, kept my eyes shut tight. Tried to keep my breathing steady until I heard footsteps moving away. Emily resumed her live stream with a fake high-pitched tone. My roommate was sleep-talking earlier, nearly scared me to death. They're okay looking, but not as good as me. Send a rocket, and I'll show you something better. I was curled up in bed, feeling cold all over. Did Amy really end up in a den of thieves? The next morning, I wanted to talk to Amy alone before Emily got up. But as soon as I stepped down, I turned and came face to face with Emily's ghostly face. Even without removing makeup, she couldn't hide her huge dark circles. My heart nearly stopped from the scare. Emily dragged me out of the room, shoved a thick envelope into my hands, voice choking. Julia, this is the money I owe Eric. Please pass it on for me. Sorry for being reckless earlier. Our J Media Company focuses on emotional chats, don't get the wrong idea. I'm just trying to ease Amy's financial burden. Her family's always pressuring her for money. She quit her previous part-time job and can't afford the penalty fees. Looking at Emily's sincere face and considering Amy's confused state recently, I inexplicably nodded. Emily did settle down, stopped hovering around Eric, and even skipped classes, taking once upon a time good girl Amy with her. Eric and I were busy preparing for exams, practically living in the library, with hardly any interaction with Emily except at night in the dorm. Until exam day, I suddenly found my exam ticket missing. I had placed it on the desk the night before, weighed down with a charger, but it was gone in the morning. Panicked, I started going around in circles in the dorm, with Sandy and Emily helping to search, but to no avail. Feeling defeated, I just sat there in a daze, not responding to their attempts to encourage me. It wasn't until I heard Eric's voice on the other side of the phone that I snapped back. Julia, my exam ticket is missing too. Let's blow things off and go out this afternoon. We can't ace them all every time, right? I wiped my face and squeezed out a pained but lightened up response. After hanging up, I noticed Emily's mouth curving slightly, trying hard to pull it back down, which was kind of comical. I packed my things, left the dorm, and ran into Eric's arms waiting downstairs. Burying my head in his chest, I couldn't help but tremble all over. Eric pressed my head against him, walking me away from the girls' dorm before letting me go. Standing straight, I finally laughed out loud. Nowadays, the exam tickets are digital, and Eric and I always print multiple copies just to be safe. We just wanted to play it safe and team up to stage a little act to prevent Emily from pulling more tricks. Eric mussed my hair, saying, "We've got to be candidates for Best Actor and Actress here. Maybe we should switch dorms. This is nerve-wracking. If it comes to it, I don't mind losing out a bit to rent a place with you." I slapped his hand away from messing my head, scaring him with, "Haven't washed in 2 days." Seeing Eric sheepishly withdrawing and then trying to rub me with a teasing look, I quickly threw him a threatening look. Eric put on an act, shivered a bit, then wrapped his arm around my shoulder and started towards the teaching building. On the way, he even switched sides with me to walk on the inside when I almost stumbled, sighing, "How would you manage this house without me?" The exam storm passed successfully with our theatrics, also bringing unexpected good news. The points for a recent competition win added up, making me eligible for a reserved graduate program interview. Though it's an internal school evaluation, it's elimination-based, so I need to prepare thoroughly. Half a month went by in a blur. I was barely in the dorm, just hitting the pillow and knocking out. Several times, Sandy seemed like she had something to say upon seeing me, but looking at me practically sleepwalking, she held back. I knew something might be wrong, but kept pushing through, no room for distractions. I tried to stay out of the dorm, limit interaction with Emily to avoid mishaps. But trouble found its way. Hot water poured all over my desk, soaking it thoroughly, destroying not just my laptop, but also 3 years of awards, thesis data, transcripts, and a recommendation letter from my teacher. Standing beside was Amy with the kettle, tears sparkling in her eyes, shaking uncontrollably. "I didn't mean it. Emily asked me to fetch you hot water, I didn't know it'd spill." Even in winter, Amy only wore thin plastic slippers. Her exposed toes were scalded red too. "I didn't mean to harm you, I don't know how this happened." Amy's tears flowed uncontrollably, whether from anxiety or pain was unclear. Emily leisurely pulled her curtain open, gloated, "I didn't ask you to fetch water. That laptop must have cost a fortune. Can you afford it? Or come try a couple of live streams for the company with me?" Amy's face turned bright red, flung the broken kettle onto Emily's bed, and went wild tugging at Emily's hair, shouting madly. "Emily, I'll finish you. You lying cheat. You'll meet a bad end." Sandy was quick to move forward and hug Amy. I reacted just in time to separate them. Amy was curled up on the floor, hugging her knees. She looked so small and pitiful. Emily didn't say a word. She picked up her phone and fiddled with it. A few seconds later, our phones went off simultaneously. I checked mine and saw that Emily had sent a few photos to our group chat, Amy pinned to the ground, clothes torn, looking terrified. Emily waved her phone around, looking pretty pleased with herself. I didn't like it, so I reached over and grabbed her phone, deleting the photos. Before I could start yelling at her, I heard Sandy shout, "Julia, come quick." Amy was halfway out the window, and Sandy was gripping her sleeve for dear life, trying to keep her from falling. I dashed over and grabbed Amy's other hand. Together, Sandy and I managed to pull her back inside. All this commotion led to calls from all the teachers, even the vice principal. They said we all needed to head to the main conference room to sort things out. On the way, Sandy tugged at my arm and opened up the school's online forum. This old school stuff hasn't been on my radar for years. But what I saw there shocked me. There was a collection of photos showing us 4 asleep in our dorm. Yep, all four of us. Sandy whispered in my ear, I noticed this 2 days ago. I wanted to wait until you finished your interview to bring it up, but now I have no choice. Logically, it seemed like Emily did it. But her photos were the most revealing, so it didn't make sense. I sent the post to Eric and called him right away while he was still relatively calm. Asked him to trace the IP of the account for me. Eric must have just woken up. He was all groggy, mumbling, "What account? What's up? What the heck? Who did this? I'll find them and pop their eyeballs." I whispered my plan, telling him to use his computer at the police station and then meet me in the conference room. School leaders were asking for the full story, and Amy was a mess, crying so hard she couldn't speak coherently. This gave Emily and the teacher a chance to rebut. They exchanged glances, and the teacher spoke up first. "That Amy girl, wearing such a short skirt, she really needs to reflect on her choices. Emily here is always helpful. She must have accidentally posted those photos while trying to help." Listening to this teacher's nonsense had me fuming. Part of me just wanted to go off on a rant. Seriously, what antique rag is that wrapped around your neck? Years of school training, and that's what you've got to show. Might as well just throw you in the hazardous waste bin. Victim blaming in this day and age, really? An accidental post? Why don't you accidentally post your brain scan so everyone can see your underdeveloped cerebellum? Help? Helping you with what exactly? Coming up with lousy ideas to scam under the guise of donations or blackmailing students with academic penalties? Seeing Amy's and Sandy's stunned faces, I realized I'd gone overboard. Way overboard. Especially with the head of the selection committee for grad school placements sitting right there. Thankfully, my outburst shut the teacher up. He slumped down in a corner, too afraid to continue. Through Amy's tearful explanations, I learned that J Media Company wasn't legit at all. It was an illegal adult content streaming site. The first time there, they took my ID and student card, saying they'd give it back a week later. But when I returned, they tore my clothes and took those photos. They threatened to post them all over the school if I talked. Amy kept crying, her sobs echoing around and making my head pound. The atmosphere was tense, when in came Eric with the cops. They immediately cuffed Emily. Emily, who'd been acting all innocent, finally broke down. She struggled fiercely, the cuffs leaving red marks on her wrists. Eric pulled out his laptop and showed everyone the screen. The post's IP was traced back to the so-called J Media Company. I cracked into the user database using the registration link provided, and I found a female streamer. 1 week ago, during a live stream, she promised she'd uncover a dorm mate if she received enough virtual gifts. They pooled nearly 500 grand that day. Do I need to explain how this violates public security laws? Emily was taken aback but composed herself. She denied everything, claiming, "You can't prove it's me, or that it's our dorm." With face-swapping tech now, I admit I chatted with people, but I only sold myself. Besides, Amy went with me willingly and signed the contract herself. How's this my fault? While Emily yelled like a madwoman, I looked at Eric. We both pulled out our phones. I'd set up a camera in my bed's curtain, capturing only my bed. Last Wednesday night, it recorded you unveiling my blanket and filming it all live. Sandy quietly stepped forward with another backup phone. Amy told me about being scammed a few days ago, so I used this phone as a recorder. She said, "I recorded you instructing Amy to damage her kettle and destroy her belongings earlier today. Forgot to tell you, the laptop was a decoy, and all materials just replicas." Emily was speechless, head bowed as the cops led her away. The immediate verdict was Emily's expulsion and that teacher's termination. Bruce, a bit smarter this time, sat in front of Amy, his hefty body shoving against her desk. "Amy, is this you in the photo? You seem so naive, yet you're posing like this." He flaunted his phone, zooming in on Amy's most embarrassing picture for everyone to see. Sandy tried to snatch the phone, but Bruce dodged her. Eric's fist was waiting on the other side, catching Bruce off guard and giving him a black eye. Eric flexed his fingers, commenting, "That was nice." I wanted to fist bump, but instead, your face just popped right in. What? Testing the thickness of your skin? Not bad, my hand hurts. Seeing as evolution seemed to skip you, I won't charge you for it. Bruce was covering his eyes, looking frustrated, muttering, "Your girlfriend's no angel either. Everyone's seen those sleep photos of hers. You're the only one treating her like a treasure." Eric was genuinely pissed off this time, with veins popping on his neck. He looked ready to leap over and tear into Bruce. I held on to his waist tightly, not because I was worried Eric would get hurt, but because I was worried he might seriously hurt Bruce. "What are you all doing?" The department head walked in with a file bag, his voice loud and clear, instantly bringing attention. "Eric, do you think the lab code will just write itself? Get back to work. I'll check later. And what are you standing there for? You want to take over for me? I'll gladly sit down. Also, with everything that's going on today, stay far away from people with skewed values. Today they make fun of others, tomorrow it'll be you they're talking about. What was I supposed to teach today? I'm so angry I forgot." Reluctantly, Eric left the classroom, allowing the lesson to continue. I thought that'd be the end of it, but Bruce was still hanging around after class, spewing nonsense our way. "I wonder what your parents would think seeing those photos. Julia might have someone, but you two will have a hard time finding husbands." Wendy walked over and tossed her notebook smack onto Bruce's face. "Why don't you take a look at your own assignments? You'll be lucky to pass the finals." I tried to keep up this image in front of the department head, a sweet, hard-working student, to make up for my recent negative impression. But I had to hold back my frustration until he left. "Are you nuts? Why are you always watching our dorm? We don't own a dog to bark at us, yet here you are. What cave did you crawl out from? You're always on about people's personal lives, it's none of your business. Tell your parents not to waste money on clothes anymore, your brain could unravel a mile-long foot binding. I don't know whether or not we'll get married, but I sure as hell will show this footage to everyone before your wedding day." I was just hitting my stride when someone tapped my shoulder. I turned to see the department head smiling kindly at me. "You're Julia, right? Eric's girlfriend?" I nodded numbly, thinking, great, now I've blown my chance at a recommendation. But my afternoon interview was the opposite of what I expected. After the routine questions, the department head suddenly called me back. "Julia, would you like to join my research team? You seem like a great fit. We could use your assertiveness for grabbing equipment." I suddenly felt deeply grateful to Eric for being such a good example and for teaching me so much just by being around him. After expressing my gratitude, Eric gently took my hand, his palm warm. He asked cautiously, "Could we move the timeline up a bit? What do you think?"